Welcome everyone to our first webinar of the financial year, and yeah, thank you for joining. During this webinar, we will be covering one of e-commerce's biggest challenges, which is how to successfully prepare for your peak sales season. Whether you have one around the corner or are just starting your preparation, you're in the right place. So to start, we'll just do a quick round of introductions. Myself, I'm Patrick Horridge, otherwise known as Pat, as we have up on the screen today. I will be today's host. I'm the sales manager here at Lumar, been at the company now for coming up to 6 years. I've seen a lot over the years, working with hundreds of different companies, all with their own kind of sets of challenges when it comes to sales season preparation. So I'm confident today's conversation is going to be helpful for a lot of you. I'll hand over to the stars of the show, which will be John Earnshaw from our partner Pi Datametrics and our very own Richard Barrett to introduce themselves.
Cool. Take it away, John. Thanks, Rich, and thanks, Pat, for that very kind intro. Yeah, I'm John Earnshaw. I'm co-founder and chief product evangelist at Pi Datametrics. An incredible SEO platform. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. I've worked in search for over 20 years. I've known Richard for many years. Love the conversations we have, and I'm delighted to be here today.
Cheers, John. Yeah, and I'm Richard. I'm the director of our professional services. So we're kind of like SEOs who work for the SEO software company. That's kind of our role within here. I'm going to try and not talk too much about Lumar despite all the branding all over the place. So we'll just embed that into your mind. But yeah, I'm more of a technical SEO. I do more development sort of style stuff. So this is why it's the perfect partnership with Pi, who are absolutely on-page masters, it has to be said. I'll flick on to a little agenda.
All right. So first of all, what are we going to be talking about? We will be covering both content and technical tips today, as both should be focused on, right, to build a cohesive strategy. We're going to be starting with your content. So we're going to be covering topics such as cannibalization, leveraging historic trends to help plan campaigns, and SERP landscape analysis. Then we'll move on to the technical tips, covering topics such as internal linking, managing soft 404s, and preserving your backlink gains. At the end, we will be answering questions, so do make sure to get them in if there is anything you're curious about or just want some guidance on. Next slide, please, Rich. Amazing. So before we get into the presentation, just a little bit of housekeeping. Please feel free to ask questions as we go through. You can submit them using the Q&A box found at the bottom of the screen. A feedback survey will also be shared with you. Please do fill this out. It takes under a minute, and it really helps us make sure these webinars are as informative and valuable as possible. Finally, a recording will be shared by email in the coming days, and you can also access it through our YouTube channel directly. Next slide, please. Lastly, before we do dive in, I do want to make a quick note. We do have the availability of closed captions. If you want to access this, click the closed caption icon at the bottom of the screen. It will just be a gray icon with a couple of C's on it. You can either select show subtitles or view the live transcript. If this is not showing for you, it might be hidden under the more icon. If you click that, it should show. Also, the webinar recording will contain full subtitles. So when that's with you, you'll be able to use it. And so to get started, a couple of quick questions. First up, when is everyone's primary peak sales season? So you've got a few options: January to March, April to June, July to September, October to December.
Now, I'd be surprised if this is not primarily October, December.
Yeah,
any thoughts on that? Yeah.
I'm thinking the same, Rich. I'm thinking the same, but let's see what people go with.
Not to colour the panel here. I mean, this is no longer a valid evidence gathering poll because I've just completely coloured it there. Yeah.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, me too. I'll back that up.
Amazing. Shall we move on to the second question?
Well, the results first.
Got the results. Results come in first.
26% in April and June, though. Like that's more than a quarter of people have their peak season around April to June. That is
Yeah, I'm
interesting.
wondering if that's like high peak. I'm wondering when that peak actually started. Be interesting to know what that product or service is.
Yeah, I was thinking holidays, of course, January makes sense. That's a big peak season for them,
Yeah,
January to March. But
absolutely.
that's quite low at only 9%.
What about pre-holiday clothes?
Manufacturing,
Interesting.
apparently.
There we go.
Manufacturing. Um,
Ah, okay. No, that's fascinating.
Adriana.
Amazing.
Uh,
So, second poll question of the day: how far in advance do you plan for your peak sales season? So, no planning, which I'm hoping not to see too many answers of that. 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and 6 months plus.
and interesting, this probably ties in quite a lot with what we're going to talk about in terms of perpetual planning, effectively.
Yeah,
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, I have some client. I know one client in particular. The day after the season's over, they'll start planning for the season again, and that's certainly not uncommon. And I know a couple of businesses who have an entire floor dedicated to a particular season, and they live in that season all year round.
Yeah, well, I was just talking to Pat about this beforehand as to the percentage of sales that a peak season makes up for a company. And it can be,
Mm,
look, I don't know the full stats. I haven't done any research on it, but as high as a third is the number I've seen banded around, which is
Mm.
insane. Like a peak season could account for a third of your entire business.
Yeah, I mean, think Black Friday. I mean, you
Oh,
work
of
Black
course.
Friday. I work Black Friday with a number of clients, and it's insane. It's just an insane
Indeed.
period. Oh, there
Oh,
we go.
we did have someone brave enough to say no planning.
No planning. Good for you for admitting it. 6 months, 6 months plus, 27%, 3 to 6. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a fairly even split amongst the others.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
the 1 to 3 months people, I expect that because everything that goes on, it's so busy. Actually getting the time to plan in advance,
Yeah.
it
Mm.
becomes very tricky, very, very tricky.
Are you surprised by any of these results, or do you think that matches your expectation?
I don't think I'm overly surprised. I maybe thought the 1 to 3 would be a bit higher, simply because the way it feels like work goes at the moment, it's always
Yeah,
what's in front of you right now. And by the time you're like, oh, I need to plan for that in 6 months, and 3 months will pass, and you've not started yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That is such a good point. It's how much time would you love to have ideally? How much time have you got? And the two are going to be very different sometimes, I think.
Yes, yes.
amazing. Well,
Cool.
thank you for answering those questions. We're going to be starting with one of our favorite topics, which is cannibalization. So, John, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. And I tell you what, people might ask, John, why are you still banging on about cannibalization? You've been talking about it for at least 10 years. And I have. And the reason is, number one, it's not getting worse. And the second reason, guys, is that it's particularly strong around peak season because everybody thinks we need to create more content and shove it into our ecosystem. So, of course, there's three things. There's three things that you need to do when it comes to cannibalization. You've got to be able to identify it. If you don't identify it, you won't know if it's growing or declining and you won't see the patterns. Fixing it, I'll show you how easy that is. And then, thirdly, if you optimize contextually, you don't need to worry about it because you're going to eliminate it. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some data. Okay, so on this slide, a question I'm often asked is, how much conflict is okay? Now, not to use the thing that that frame that all SEOs use, it depends, but it does actually depend. It depends on your competitors. And here we have two businesses in the same space, so we're actually comparing keyword cannibalization, okay, across 3,000 terms. One business has got 41% cannibalization. Is that okay? Well, when your competitor's only got 4%, I'd say it's not okay. So, I mean, Richard, how much cannibalization do you see in your day-to-day work?
Oh, a crazy amount. Sometimes, especially with the way that we track things, which is all numerical. It's very much a case of what is the number of clicks, what is the number of impressions, and you see inconsistencies. And you might make a big change, an improve something that is guaranteed to be an improvement, and yet the traffic's still bouncing all over the place. And then when you dig into it, you suddenly see the average rank is changing all the time, and it's changing between different pages, of course. And the thing I love the most about cannibalization in terms of solving it is there's more than one way to do it. There's obviously make the page better, make the page more well, you've got the words for this, John, but make the page less cannibalizing from an on page content. But there's also technical solutions to it. There's issues that you can identify. So I love that it crosses over so much.
I love this, and that's why whenever we meet, we always talk about it. But one thing that you have to be aware of with cannibalization, as we're going to see on the next slide, you have to know, is it staying the same? Is it getting worse? Or is it getting better? And in fact, if you look at this chart here, you can see that over a period of 1 month, we've got about a 35 to 40% increase in the incidence of cannibalization, which, remember, is a keyword thing and not a content thing. And we often see this pattern in the build up to peak as everybody Black Friday thinks content, content, content. Everybody's looking at the competition thinking we've got to up our refresh rates and our content injection rates. And if this is happening to you, chances are you're wasting effort. You're better off pulling that back, optimizing contextually, and reducing the amount of conflict. So I'm going to show you a fix. Let's jump on to the next slide. This was a real favorite of mine. So it's quite current. And I have one client who was trying to be position 1 for a particular product. It's a male grooming product. I don't know, it's razors or something like that. Now, they had a position 1, as you can see in that chart there, back in December 2024, dropped to position 2, halved the revenue, dropped further down. What was causing this? Well, it turns out that there was another page that had attracted a lot of authority because that was a sponsored page. That was causing this conflict. Let's jump on to the next slide. So the first step was identifying that it is cannibalization. Secondly, which piece of content is causing it? Let's try and fix it. Let's channel authority by taking complementary pages and linking those, including the conflicting page, to the page that we want to position. That got us to position 2. Okay, so that was pretty good. But position 2 is not enough. We can double our revenue for that particular item by moving into 1. So on the next page, you can see what we did. We took the conflicting page and we asked a couple of questions. Is it generating revenue? No. Is it causing conflict? Yes. Is this page positioning in its own right? No. Do we really need it? No. Well, let's redirect it. And within 24 hours, that redirect actually resulted in a move to position 1, where this product has stayed now for almost 4 weeks. And in fact, if you jump to the next slide, you'll be able to see the page that was causing the problem. This is classic category product. Product got the authority, caused the problems. And of course, even though we put the 301 on, Richard, the freaking thing is still in the SERP. How long's that going to stay there, my friend?
Probably forever.
Yeah.
We do have some clients who have redirected pages going back 5-6 years. Occasionally they spike up in the results again.
Yeah.
Redirects are pretty much for life, not just for Christmas. Sorry for that terrible joke, but I had to squeeze one in somewhere.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's a good point. Yeah, no, it's a really good point of when should you remove 301s? And this is a perfect example of you really probably shouldn't. This is something that goes on full time.
Exactly. Keep them clean. Don't chain them up too much. Just leave them in place. So I love this because it was fixed and it stayed fixed and they made money. Let's go on to the second. Okay. Historic trends, search volume. Again, something that we're such big fans of at Pi because, this helps you to make decisions. And I get asked 2 questions every day. In fact, just before this webinar, somebody asked me the question, what should we be writing about towards peak to become a topical authority? And when should we publish? And that's when I turn to this kind of data. And this data is just so wonderful because it really helps you with that history to understand what's coming. So I think in the chart that we've got here, we're looking at makeup. And even within a category, you get different peaks. So when it comes to nails, okay, you build in March and peak in July. And nails, the search volume is so much higher than the rest of those beauty subcategories. Accessories builds in July, peaks in October, probably because we're buying these as gifts for our friends, perhaps. But you can see here, lining that data up allows you to really predict when you need to start work. And on the next chart, yeah, this one here, this is homeware. And I thought this was timely. Garden furniture. I mean, garden furniture starts building 1st of January. 1st of January, New Year's resolutions, let's fix up the garden, and it builds all the way up into May, lasts for about a month, and then declines. So you know when you're going to start. DIY appears stable, but if we go to the next slide, I love this one. I love this one. Take out the rest of the data to look at this line in isolation. We see the patterns. We know exactly what to do with DIY here. Peaks in January, declines throughout the year. This helps us with our efforts. What do you reckon, Rich?
Yeah, this is something that's it's actually really interestingly mirrored in the way that Google actually does things, because we see similar patterns in terms of Google will crawl pages and it will crawl more of a certain page, and you'll see more errors appear if you've got errors within these sections at the same time. So it's mirrored in the sense of what is happening on Google's side is the same as what is happening on the user side, which isn't a surprise, but
Yeah.
also really useful to know that that's what you should be looking at.
100%. So, this really does help you to understand the when and the what. There are other ways of finding this, but I wouldn't be producing content without looking at this data. So, the other thing, of course, that we're looking at, that we're obsessed with as we move on to the next slide, is, of course, the SERP landscape. Close to my heart, Richard, close to your heart. And this quote here, this really says it all. And this was a quote from Google. What we ranked in 2023 is not what we want to rank in 2025. And anybody who's taken a close look at the SERP can see what's changed. It's not about the SEO that's changed, it's what you SEO. So if you're targeting your SEO efforts on the same things, assets, entities that you were targeting in 2023, it's not going to work in 2025. What do you make of that? Well, Richard, I mean, what's Google telling us?
Well, I mean, there's actually a lot of interesting things that Google's telling us, but I think anybody who's been paying any attention whatsoever will be familiar with the AI overviews.
Yep.
They're taking content, they're putting it out as their own answers and things like that. So that massively changes things. Now we know from the updates to the quality rating guide, my word, quality raters guide. We'll stick with that one because I think I'm not going to manage to get any other words out there. That they've switched their focus on what is considered quality. Now, if they're switching their focus on what is considered quality at the back end, what's going to be considered in the future is already changing. It's already in limbo. So know that Google is always trying to keep up on trends. It's on the data, what people find useful. And that's a big part of what the core web algorithm updates are about, by the way. Nothing is being introduced, generally speaking, nothing is being introduced that's like, oh, a brand new penalty. It's more a case of Google's looking at the results, going, we don't like that query. We don't like the answers. So let's tweak it until we do like it, and then roll it across several billion websites and see what happens.
Yeah, and Google is looking closely, Richard. And Google's also looking closely at how people search, what platforms they're using, and where else they're going. So
Indeed,
this story continues onto the next slide, and we are now showing more social content. Okay, more social content because, of course, in fact, if we go on to the next slide, we'll see where this is coming from. It turns out that as we go down the generations from boomers, Gen X into Gen Alpha, people's needs change and the search behavior changes radically. There's this need for fast content, first-hand, authentic, social, and also trusted. And trust is critical for the relationship between brands and businesses. And then we've got TikTok over there, authentic, curated content. So of course, Google's thinking, wow, we better get some of this into the SERP to replace the content that we eradicated as part of the spam update. Okay, so you really have to start thinking about closer alignment with social teams and social content. How much alignment are you seeing, Rich, between SEO and social?
Oh,
Is
it's massive. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago that Google announced that they were working directly with Reddit. So,
yeah,
I mean, I'm not that big a fan of that arrangement on Google's side, but at least they were transparent, announced that that's what was going on. So if Google's telling you that it's doing it, then probably it's been doing it for a while, right? They've been using that data. I am
exactly.
getting, yeah, exactly. And I'm getting a little bit sick of when I search getting a Reddit answer every single time, but that's the state of the search right now.
Rich, we're moving to a conversation and there's no getting away from it. In fact, on the next slide, I'm going to pass to you in a second, Rich, a year in search. These two web radars, one on the left, it's for men's fashion. Okay, so we're looking at the features. That was dull and boring last year. This year, what have we got? We've got the video carousel, video links, we've got answer cards, we've got AI overview, we've got this really rich conversational SERP. That is different to what it was. And in fact, the next quote I've got, also from Google, their promise, Google's parting promise, surface more content from creators. And this is where you can see, Richard, creators looking at big brand content and then going with autocomplete. So they're going for the longer tail version, creating social content and actually owning the SERP. But you got to move fast to do it. It's an exciting time for those creators. And if I was a brand, I'd be thinking and looking for creators and social teams to work with.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's going to be a fun year, I reckon.
Well, it's always a fun year in SEO. Who knows what's next? But I do know what's next. Internal linking changes. So we're moving into the more technical side. So the first thing I wanted to call out is the common tactic in whenever a sales thing comes along, we add a new page. And John has already talked about how this influences cannibalization. But there's another thing it influences. And I've got a couple of examples here just to show you. So this is just one I pulled from Google search results because it's not Black Friday. It's kind of hard to find a website that's willing to show a Black Friday link. But on the nav bar on this Matalan page here, you'll see they've added a Black Friday page. And that's pretty common. Pretty common for websites just to throw a Black Friday page on there and put all the content that they wanted to do for Black Friday and all the sales stuff in that box. And it seems to make sense. If I show you the page on the right, this is one I took from Costco, which is one of my favorite shops to go to at the moment. They have a hot buys section, and this is a contrasting thing here because that is perpetual. That is always there. So if that page is always there, you can always reuse it. Now, this is just at the moment. I'm not saying that Costco won't slap a Black Friday page on there and change all the linking architecture. And that's really what I wanted to show you. So on the top, this is a linking architecture. It's any linking architecture. It's homepage or any starting page, links to other pages, then they link to other pages. But what happens when you add a new page or you bring a page that was deeper into the site further up? So the homepage now links to this subpage, which now links to these really deep linked pages. They're suddenly shifted right the way up in the importance queue. And that changes things on your website. It can go as far as to change the intent of your website if you do a big enough change. Consider if you're an e-commerce company or a dental practice or something along those lines, and suddenly you promote your blog right to the top. So now your social content, your blog content is really high importance. Is that really what you want? Just consider when those are added, what links you are creating further down the line and what influence that could have if those are seen as the most important. What are your thoughts on it, John?
I think that's really interesting. I mean, you've said so much. I don't think we can unpack it in the time. But I love this diagram, Richard, because this is a really good example of the difference between click depth and URL. And you've just exposed how important click depth is. So it doesn't really matter sometimes where things look like they are in the structure. How close is that content to ground level? How much authority are you giving it? And how important and prominent is that within your content ecosystem? Yeah, super important.
Absolutely. A lot of things can change from a single linking shift.
Yeah.
And personally, I have done experiments where I have put a deeper page into the nav bar just to see what would happen, and the rankings have shot up. I haven't seen what rankings have shot down in response, but
Yeah.
you know, we only talk about positives in SEO,
Oh,
right?
totally. And we work with a lot of affiliates, really highly competitive, where every position counts. And sometimes, as they're moving towards peak, I'll be encouraging appropriate links from the homepage, appropriate links, not just a footer link or something like that, but a prominent link saying, I care about this content. I give this authority, rank that for me.
Excellent. Yeah, that's exactly it. So I'll move on to another one of my pet peeves for e-commerce companies.
And
Soft
before we
404s.
start,
Sorry, go on.
Richard, I've got to, just in case you weren't going to, just please explain to everybody what a soft 404 is.
No, everybody has to guess. A soft 404, it's a Google term, specifically a Google term. Now, other crawlers might use it, but a lot of the time we find ourselves trapped in that Google mindset because of the dominance they have on the overall search results. Now, a soft 404 is a page that returns what's called a 200 status code, or everything's fine, this is a real page. And then it has some content on there, like out of stock, something along those lines. And Google says, well, actually, this should be a 404. So I'm going to treat it exactly like a 404. And sorry, my phone is listening to me say Google. There you are, it's heard me. And it's going to treat it exactly like a 404, and that means all the negative stuff that is associated with a 404 happens anyway. Now, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Each soft 404 is treated individually as a single page. It's not something that affects the overall quality of your site unless you have an overwhelming number of soft 404s or 404s. But that's what you've essentially done. You've created a 404 that you thought you'd sort of got around, perhaps. Now, I mentioned about it returning a 200 status code. There is one other example, but I will get to that in a second. But I wanted to show some examples of things that are considered 404, soft 404s. And there's some interesting ones here. So there's a fairly typical one at the top here. I pulled this off eBay. This listing was ended by the seller because this is no longer available. Google's gone, right, okay, that should be a 404, soft 404. So forget about all your backlinks that pointed to that page, any internal authority, that's all gone. Someone was a little bit cleverer, redirected and said, we're sorry, this is no longer available, but here are some similar things. Google caught that straight away as well. Soft 404. Doesn't matter that you redirected, you now have lost all that value. But there's one other example that I wanted to flag, and this is where Google gets it wrong, because this is from Lumar's website. And what we're showing here is a variable called unavailable after days. This is some information that we're sharing. Google sees unavailable after days and goes, oh, page is unavailable, soft 404. So this is information we want to share with people. Well, it's being marked as a soft 404, and as a result, can't be indexed, doesn't get its internal links, and
That's so
we lose
interesting.
out.
I've not seen that before, Richard. That's really interesting.
Something to be keenly aware of, the language that you use on the page, particularly at the top or above the fold, I guess we could say. You've got to be careful that you're not signaling to Google unintentionally that this page actually has no content on it, or no useful content on it.
Yeah.
So therefore, they will mark it as a soft 404. Now,
Yeah.
I will just hold off. No, I'll move on to the next bit. So what I wanted to sort of sign off on here with soft 404s is think about whether or not that page could be rolled into another page, exactly the same as a 404. Is there another relevant page that could be redirected to? Could it be better served somewhere else? And instead of essentially allowing the page to expire, allow the page to go somewhere else. It's a difficult one with e-commerce because products go out of stock a lot. And that brings me on to my next point, which is preserving backlink gains. So you've hit peak season. It's Black Friday. You've pointed loads of people to your page. And I've done a wonderful little drawing here.
On the color version.
Indeed. Color is unusual for me. For those of you who aren't that familiar with my terrible drawings, let's be clear, they are absolutely awful. I don't know why people keep requesting them, but I will keep drawing them as long as they keep being requested.
Keep going, Rich. I love them. Keep going.
So what you have in this scenario is you built your links to the Black Friday page or another sales page, and then that page is going to go. It's no longer part of the site. So I know what I'll do. I'll redirect it, and I'll redirect it to my homepage and preserve all that value that has been built up. Well, Google comes in with its mallet, smacks it down because it will mark it as a soft 404, and all that value is gone. So what you've got to think.
I just got to say, if anybody's listening to this, so many people do this, get lazy when it comes to like just freaking redirect it too far up. I love this. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's a common problem with categories as well. People go, oh, I'll just redirect it to the top category. It's kind of more related, but there's so much better that you could be doing there. And another step down could be to filter it to the same products. Let's say you've got a category of shoes, you've redirected some expired trainers, some red trainers. So right, I'll redirect it to red trainers in my filter. It's a little bit better. You're getting there bit by bit, but it's not quite there. It's not really what Google's after when it wants to get rid of pages that are out of stock, and it's not quite what users want. So I'll show you what this looks like as well when you don't preserve your backlinks effectively. So if you're not familiar with crawl, currently not indexed, discovered, currently not indexed, they are both black boxes of information that Google sends all those links to just hide out there, and you have no idea really what's going on. Or maybe you do, and you should share that information with me immediately for no reason. But what you've got is these peaks and troughs. So you can see it. This is actually a graph from Lumar's website. You can see this going up, and then it's going down, and then it's going up. What is actually happening here? Because surely Google, our website does not update very often. Surely Google's not finding hundreds of new pages and then getting rid of hundreds of new pages. Well, Google will only hold on to that information for a certain amount of time. If it crawls your website and then let's say your Black Friday page, and then you take it out of the linking structure and it's not really crawled for 6 months, why should Google hold on to that information? Well, what it does, and we've seen this more routinely, is it starts to clear that information out. It goes, well, this page isn't really getting visited anymore. This page isn't being hit by the bots anymore. That's a key factor there. So I'm going to clear my data. And I'm going to basically remove it from the index, and I'm going to hide that information. And it will come back, but with all the value basically reset to 0. So you're starting all over again. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on this, John?
Well, I think you were hit the nail on the head when you said this is like a black box. This is like an area that people just don't go to. And I think people by and large avoid this. We'd probably see that 623 and think, I'm just going to go somewhere else and maybe go and get a bite to eat. But I mean, in your experience, doing something with this, is it worth the effort? What do you think the benefits would be?
It can be, but it's worth noting that Google has decided these pages don't really represent much value. So what value are you going to then add to these pages to make them worth being indexed again? And that's the thing to consider. Is it too much effort to add value to all these pages versus either just getting rid of them, maybe redirecting them, maybe all these other things that could be done to keep the overall number of pages lower, easier to maintain? So that's what you've got to weigh it up against. And when it comes to things like Black Friday, you don't want your Black Friday page hiding in here, because then you've got to start the work all over again. And the same with other sales pages. I focused in on Black Friday because it's the easiest one to call out. But other sales pages, maybe it's a spring sale page. Well, in 12 months, we'll be back on spring again, hopefully. And you're going to have that page up again. So why let all that value degrade, disappear, just to create it again? think about how you can keep that page active on your
Yeah.
site.
And that's something I think, Richard, people forget. It's curation. We all create, and we're all guilty of creating, dumping it into our ecosystem and running off into the sunset. We need to become better curators of our ecosystems, looking at data like this, caring about visibility, and nurturing content that perhaps is not performing as well as it should, especially as we're building up to peak.
Absolutely. And it's worth mentioning every time John Mueller's pressed on this issue, he will always say, make the page better, not get rid of it. Don't curate it. Don't cut your content off. Sorry, make the page better. And that is an answer that I think is very important. We should not really dissect too many of Google's answer, in my opinion, because having met John, he hates that. But effectively, what he's saying there is make good pages. Make good pages. And if it's not a good page, then maybe think about getting rid of it.
Yeah, often start with what you've got before going out and pushing more in.
There's quite an
Exactly.
interesting question related to this in the chat. So Kelsey asks, so she's implemented a redirect to a page with better content. However, that improved page, Google has now removed from indexation. How should she go about resolving that?
Oh, that is interesting. So to fully understand this, I believe what you're saying is a page was redirected to another page, and the page that was then became the target. That's the word I'm looking for. And I'll pop the chat open as well. And the target is now no longer in the index because Google's decided it's not part of the pages it wants to rank. That isn't something I can answer very quickly, but the consideration though, sorry, go on, John, do you have something?
I was going to say, I don't think we can answer it now, but to see the page, to know the existing, I think if we could get that, we could probably piece this together, Richard, because it sounds quite interesting and it shouldn't be happening because this mirrors the example I showed at the start where we did a redirect. It actually transferred the authority and went to position 1 and stayed there. So that's what we should be getting.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, there's always the chance that Google just doesn't think it's worth indexing for another reason that we don't know about. So you're 100% right, John. We would need the page really to have a look at that. But a couple of things just to look out for in general is the page being crawled. That's number one, because if it's not being crawled regularly, then Google's probably just forgotten about it effectively. It's chosen to forget about it, I should say specifically. That would be the first thing I would look at. The second part is it even linked on your site? If it's not linked internally, and it sounds like it is linked internally, it's worth mentioning. But if it's not linked internally on your site, then it maybe is taking a dive because of that. But make sure specifically that Google knows it's linked internally, not just users. So there was one last thing I wanted to squeeze in here, and I'm going full tech nerd now, so I do apologize for those of you who aren't as interested in this section. What I wanted to focus on, competitive price analysis during this time. Right, so how do you do it? First off, typically we're looking for unique items on a page, and I've chosen Apple here. Here is their price. And then here in the code, or the HTML, I should say specifically, because developers will beat me with a stick if I call it code. Here is the price. And what we've got here is a class name, a unique class name, RC price is full price. So when we're at this stage, what we know is this is where the price is shown, the $249. That's the information we want. And we've got a unique class name. That's going to help us because we move on to the next step, and it's creating a regex extraction. Now, in Lumar, you can do this. I'm just going to gloss over that because there is other tools that will allow you to do that, but I am going to obviously point to the company that I work for. And this is how we would do this. So we've written it in pretty much plain English here. Class equals RC price is full price. That's it. That's all we need to do to match at that point. But what we need to do now is figure out what we want to capture. And what we're capturing here is this is regex. So this is any character, any number of times, but I've also made it optional. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying there might be a space here. We might get rid of this text. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm just saying, just get whatever there, just match whatever there, and then match on this angular bracket, which ends the tag. And at that point, then I've created this group here which captures the price. And that's the bit that I'm interested in.
Mhm.
So this is saying any character, any number of times, but also I've made it optional. So it may find the price, it may not find the price. And there's a specific reason for that. And that's so that I can move on to the next character and say, as soon as another tag starts, match on this. So if you don't find anything, that's fine. Don't capture anything, but match on this next one. And then I've highlighted this just to show that in my particular version of regex, you do have to escape forward slashes. That is a common one to catch people out. It looks like it's working, or it should work, I should say, and then it doesn't work. So it's a bit more of an in-depth example, but here's what I want to do at the end of it. I've captured the price, the match group here, the price. Now I'm going to take a list of URLs. I'm going to put all these prices on with them, match them against, and usually any sort of crawler tool would help you get this. Obviously Lumar, again, I'm going to push that. We're going to match that against the URL. We're going to slap it into a spreadsheet. And then you can compare it to your list of URLs. And what I would do is I would go to a website, and this is typically what we do for clients, particularly on the sales stuff, and I would just grab all their products and I would match them to URLs of my products. And then I would look at them in the opposite columns, basically put them into a spreadsheet. There's better ways of doing it than a spreadsheet, but spreadsheets are so simple. You just have a URL, prices. Is there a difference in the prices? And does that help us make a decision of, well, they're pushing this product, maybe we should put more SEO. Or we can't match that price. Let's put less SEO effort into this because we know they're spending big on that, and go and focus elsewhere.
This is so interesting, Richard. And are you seeing any relationship between lower price and higher visibility? Just got to ask that.
Well, that is an interesting question. I don't think I can answer that, John. I don't think I can. I don't think I have enough data to actually answer that. A lot of the time, what happens is two companies will compete over a singular product, and they want to know what's the price that they're operating at versus their competitors.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the problem that they want to solve. But this is not SEO at that point. We're into full business here. We've moved out of
I think
rankings.
this is so interesting, particularly in really competitive e-com situations, particularly affiliates. I'm going to be speaking with you after this because I'm thinking about some clients that might like this approach. So yeah, I'll
I'll
be
send you my
tapping
rates. Yeah. Cool. And then we're into the key takeaways. So, John, I've been talking for ages, so I'd love for you to provide the first key takeaway we'd like our audience to have from this.
Okay, I mean, okay, there are so many, but for me, as you build up to peak, and let's take Black Friday. Black Friday is a much shorter build up to peak. We saw some of those summer ones that I was looking at with garden furniture. 4, 5, or 6 months. Really be conscious as you start to roll out your content. Keep an eye on competitor refresh rates, and we do a lot of stuff with that. Keep an eye on those, and just before you inject anything into your ecosystem in that build up to peak, just do it contextually. Make sure that you are not introducing content that is going to cause keyword cannibalization. Really think about it. Is there any content that is conflicting? Is there any content that is complementary? Get links from the complements to boost the authority as you've shown, and just steer away from the conflicts. If necessary, redirect, merge, or even theme differently. For me, that's it. I see too much cannibalization in the build up to peak. Just prevent it. Go on, Rich. What's yours?
Well, I'm torn now because you've spoken so much about keyword cannibalization and it's such a big problem. Such a big problem. Yeah. I mean, it's in my mind after we did the last webinar together, it was in my mind for months and months about how else can we look at this. But I think if I had to pick one, it would be to be thinking long term about these sale pages, to be thinking long term about your Black Friday landing page, your Easter landing page. Maybe it's no longer a Black Friday Easter landing page. Maybe it becomes very much like Costco, a hot buys page or a special offers page. And then everything is feeding into it. You keep getting those backlinks, you keep getting those continual internal links that you're building on there. And if you're not going to go that approach, if you're still going to be thinking okay, well, we still need unique pages, and then we're going to hang everything off it. Think about how you can merge those back into your structure and preserve as much as you can, because every year then you're building instead of constantly starting from zero. And
Yeah.
you don't have to go right the way down to every single product and say, well, that one's out of stock. Now I'm going to do this. In an ideal world, we would absolutely micromanage. We don't have time for every single little piece. Think about the pages that are going to carry the most weight, your top level category pages that you've just introduced, your sales page summary page, if you like.
And you know what, Richard? That sounds basic, but it freaking works. It just works. All of this stuff today works. And every time you and I talk to somebody, they say, I wish I could just get more traffic. I just wish I could get more people onto my site. All of these things are going to contribute to that.
Absolutely. Cool. So I'll pass back to Pat, I think, to sign us off here.
Yes, well, we've still got some questions to ask, so I'm going to get through this as quickly as possible, and we will answer everyone's questions that's in the chat. But a lot of the insights that we've covered today are available across our two core platforms. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with either Lumar or Pi Datametrics, I'll give a brief introduction. So Lumar, we're a website optimization platform. We help e-com companies really to uncover revenue driving opportunities and maximize their conversions. That's really done through technical SEO, site speed, performance, and accessibility standards analysis. So we also help companies to take action on opportunities faster by really providing your developers with all the information they need to understand and implement the recommendations in the form of comprehensive tickets. So really the things that you're looking to achieve quickly and understand can all be conducted through Lumar from a technical perspective. Pi Datametrics similarly helps e-commerce brands to uncover revenue driving opportunities by analyzing your full SERP landscape and providing really actionable AI recommendations to improve your content and maximize the search visibility to potential customers against your competitors. So really everything that you need to understand from a sales season standpoint can be identified and provide a visibility across the two platforms. So that does feed into the final poll question before we start answering your questions. Would anyone like a demo of Lumar and Pi Datametrics? So there's a few options. A joint demo of both platforms now that we have partnered together. You can have a single demo of either Lumar or Pi. So please do feel free to vote.
I can't vote, Pat.
Yeah, I tried.
I want a demo.
Come on, yeah. Take one for me, please.
Well, just looking at some of those questions. Hey, got
amazing. So, yeah, let's go into those questions. So there were a few in the chat. Now one goes back to the 404. So at my company, so this is from Marlena. At my company, when items go out of stock, and we won't be doing them again, the team archive/delete the pages, which causes broken pages. Is this bad, or should these be redirected?
So it's a really, really important question, I think, because there is nothing wrong with a broken page. A 404 is a totally fine thing and an expected thing as part of the web. So it's not bad that the pages are broken, but there is a lot of scenarios where people are leaving stuff on the table effectively, where, for example, red sneaker has gone out of stock. Maybe they don't make that version anymore, but the new version's just come in. Well, how relevant is it? Is it more or less the same but updated? Or a better example, the iPhone 13 becomes the iPhone 14. There's not that much difference in them, really. Let's redirect to iPhone 14. Let's show the content where the new content is. This is not going to apply for every single thing. You are going to have products that go out of stock, they're just no longer available, and they 404, and there's not really a lot you can do about this. John, I don't know if you've got anything else to add on that.
No, I agree with you absolutely, Richard. And there is nothing wrong with a 404. Just make sure it's not happening to content that you care about or linked to something that you cared about. And just try and help the person. If you think that something else might be relevant, then you can guide them to that as well. So really just think about your audience.
Yeah, and just to sneak in a quick one at the end, because I just saw Prashant's message underneath. or should mark as 410. 404 and 410 are treated exactly the same by Google, so don't worry about that in the eyes of the bots. But it is quite interesting because if you do use a 410, that means you've deliberately chosen to use a 410, which can be useful for tracking down where maybe errant code has made a page go break effectively. So they're not necessary, but they can be useful.
Amazing. So we've got another couple of questions. This one's quite an interesting one because I'm seeing it more and more. So if product variant URLs generate separate indexable pages, how should we consolidate signals to avoid keyword cannibalization and fragmentation? Which is
the age-old
great question. Yeah.
Age-old question of facets, of which if you ask 10 people, you'll get 10 answers. But you've got to be very careful when you have multiple facets or varieties of the same thing. And the general advice is, and there was an amazing, Google wrote a case study in this. I think it was called a gummy bears example. It's years old, but it's still quite good. So you can expose all of the facets to the audience and any which way they get to go to the facet, that's fine. But you've got to be very careful. Sitting side by side, these can cause a lot of conflict. So I would say to Google, just be very careful about where you let Google go. Expose Google to popular facets that you know people are going to be searching for only. Let people go wherever they want. That's what I would do. But every case is different. But I would say go and find that Google gummy bears example. It's very good. Richard,
Yeah, I don't think.
on that?
I was going to say, I don't think there's too much more to add. I mean,
yeah.
I can tell you many different ways that we have attempted to approach this. So one, for example, is to only allow one version to be indexed. Another is to canonicalize everything. And each one has its merits and its drawbacks. So you've really got to figure out, are the pages, I guess, are all the variants valuable in their own right? Should they all be in the index? Do you want that to be the case? And if that is, then treat them as 10 individual pages. What are you going to do with those 10 pages? But I think John's answer was far more comprehensive. And the example, the gummy bears example, I'd point you towards that as well.
Yeah. So I do know of some companies that they'll have a limit on how many facets, like filters, can be applied, that they'd count as an indexable page. I guess how does a company go about defining which pages should they index and which ones are not worthy of indexing?
I think if you look at how people search on your site already and how people are coming into the site, so if you're searching for a pair of blue brogues with green laces, I mean, you might offer that, but nobody's going to search for it. So just don't even put that there as an option for Google to crawl and potentially conflict. So really think about what's the likelihood of somebody or a lot of people actually searching for that variant of the product. And if there are a number, expose that facet, optimize that facet, and make sure it's not conflicting with the other facets, which should not be exposed.
Great answer.
But again, it's a big answer to put into a small space of time.
Yeah. So I know we only have a couple minutes left. So I guess final question to answer. What is the recommended approach for launching new product pages to ensure they're indexed and ranked quickly?
Richard, do you want to go?
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're talking about a very big site, there's one approach that I particularly like, which is to effectively tie it to the submission via API call. So you're submitting it as you've created the page. It's not necessary, but it is usually the fastest way you're going to get it indexed. The key thing to think about in terms of indexing, particularly if you're going to launch, I don't know, 10,000 new products at once, something like that. If you're talking about indexation problems, really it's going to have to be in big sample sizes, like 10,000. Because if it's only 2 or 3, Google will pick those up provided they're linked properly. And that's the sort of crux here. If you make sure that the products are linked properly, Google will find it. If you're talking like, if you're asking me in your Amazon or your eBay, then you're going to have to do more work because Google's never getting to the bottom of your product list. You're going to have to think, these new 10,000 products or whatever, are they the products that we want to be found by Google, indexed, and show in search results? Or are they there for the users? In which case, the users should be able to find them using your own internal search engine or the categories that you've created. But we're not too fussed about Google, so we don't need to worry about them too much. If it's the former and you do want them to be indexed, think about how you would showcase that at a quite early stage. So, for example, new in, a new product line has been launched. So you have a page that says new in, and it's in your nav bar. That allows Google to get there very quickly, 1 or 2 clicks, and then find those pages quite quickly. So that then the speed to index then becomes how often does Google crawl your site? The more popular your site is, the more often Google crawls it, and that's effectively the the makeup of all the ways that Google can index it. The last approach is you could use a sitemap. I don't love sitemaps. They do have their purpose, don't get me wrong, but they're not really beneficial to marking out authority or anything like that. They're not providing any benefit other than the pages being found. And if your page is only being found via the sitemap, then the indicated value is probably quite low.
I mean, honestly, that's such a great answer. I can't top that, Richard, but I totally agree with you. Sitemaps do not show the relationship between content. That's down to internal linking, and that's critical, even more critical today as we move into the age of conversational search.
Amazing. So
Awesome.
there is an interesting, it will have to be a very quick answer, John. I think this is a line for you, but Alexander is asking, is a page ranking on page 2 or 3 and a page ranking on page 1 for the same keyword a cannibalization problem in your eyes?
I'd say from the information I have here, you can have a page ranking on page 2 and a page ranking on page 1. So yes, it could be cannibalization. You can have cannibalization as far down as position 300 plus, and that can influence. So yeah, absolutely. You can be pulled off page 1 by content on page 10. So it can be conflict. And if you want to send an example through, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, it's worth noting we specifically have dealt with an issue like this where position 1 we had for a client, and they also had position 50 for the same key term. And what was happening was they would show up page position 1 and then 50 and then 1 and 50. Every time they appeared at 50, they lost loads of traffic.
Yeah. Very often what's appearing at 50, it can be a PDF or some other sketchy page that's doing nothing for them except losing traffic. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. So that's all the time we have for questions. If there are any more, please do feel free to email the address that's been provided in the chat, so marketing@lumar.io. Rich will be more than happy to answer them. So a couple of things just to wrap us up. So Pi very recently launched AI overview tracking. So I'd highly recommend checking out their capabilities as we do enter this new era of search. We've also released a new guide now for AI search and SEO. So that is available on our site. We will also be sending that out after this webinar in the coming days. And then finally, for those of you that are interested in the upcoming European Accessibility Act, which is coming into place in June, we do have a webinar on the 15th of May focused on preparation strategies. So for that, you can sign up on our website.
Amazing.
Cool. And that is everything from us, I believe, today.
Well,
Thank you, everybody.
Guys.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, and thanks, Pat, as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. It was my first one, and yeah, it was good.
Well, thank you so much, guys, and of course, thanks to the amazing audience and all those wonderful questions.
Absolutely.
See you guys soon.
See you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.